Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 652, recorded live the weekend of Saturday, October 2nd. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning to the show, Community Manager Cordovan.
Hello, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome back, sir. It's always fun to have you back on the show.
Yeah, nice to be here on a Saturday. We're all keeping busy as we were just talking
Yeah,
ahead of time here. We got a lot going on. October's a busy month.
yeah,
Yeah,
can be.
yeah.
See, this week's screenshot, the Three Musketeers of Galanda pose in the 526 screenshot of the week. Thanks, Carly, for sending in this week's screenshot. Yeah, it's always fun. I always like the coordinated. What's the synchronized?
Yep.
Synchronized screenshots are kind of fun. So,
Yeah.
and I believe that's the smugglers, the full smuggler set. I think they're all
Yes.
wearing.
Yeah, that's a smuggler set from the Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh, both mount and uh, cloak and armor and hat.
Yep. Which is the, if I remember correctly, the middle tier. You need to buy at least the middle tier if you want that from Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh. So,
Yeah, the lizard folk one is in the upper end.
right.
Yeah.
And hey, if you found that you are enjoying Saltmarsh, but you bought like a lower tier and want to go up to a higher tier, I think you can get in touch with the community service.
You don't even need to.
Oh, this okay.
Not for Saltmarsh. Saltmarsh is actually the first mini expansion that we offer upgrade tiers for. So, if you are on a base edition and you want to get the collectors, there's actually a process to do that through the DDO market.
Well, that's cool.
They'll pay the difference basically, and that's it. So,
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network, and shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next weekend, and you can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, on the back half, we'll have the second part of our discussion on update 51 preview 1, which was we talked about it last week, but the creativeness of the the naming, right? That it was preview 1 after we already had a preview.
well, it was update 51's preview one. That's
Yeah.
why, because the last one was just kind of an early non-numbered version of kind of an early preview. This is the first preview of Update 51, which, whatever. It's consistent with the way we do our builds and everything, right? So this was our first preview of the Update 51 build that's being put together. So that's kind of how it gets that name. But sure, yeah.
The inconsistent part was that we previewed part of Update 51 before Update 50 previewed.
There's actually, we're just on a roll with this somewhat unusual kind of naming in that too. We actually just this week got what we think we have as the name for Update 51 approved. And the name of that is A New Destiny, which makes sense, right? Because it's a kind of a new destiny for epic destinies and all that sort of thing. But it also works on multiple levels because it comes with one new destiny. So it's A New Destiny Update 51. Yeah, it's pretty good. So
Sure, it'll work. We're also going to be talking about some game and community news and just spend a little time with Cordovan to kind of get an idea of where we're going for the rest of the year and all that kind of fun stuff. That's the plan. So let's talk some game news. Steelstar had a post talking about Reaper reset costs. So there's when you reset your Reaper points, just like enhancements and other things, you pay some platinum. Steelstar said reset costs vary depending on the minimum level of enhancements you have trained and go up for each enhancement you have trained, in addition to the multiplier for each time you've reset recently, which goes up with each reset and back down with time. Costs of Reaper enhancement resets are especially expensive relative to other enhancements due to their high minimum level. It's something they plan to address next time they make significant changes to Reaper mode. Which I guess that means that minimum level also plays a factor in this, which is a little newsworthy there.
yeah.
But
Yeah, it's in some ways, the Reaper reset costs were set a little bit higher than, I guess, what you might otherwise think. In part because over the years we frequently hear about, hey, there needs to be a plat sync in the game from the community. And so when we were looking at building the Reaper enhancement reset costs at that time in particular, we had a big long conversation happening on online and on the forums and whatever about how we need to have more plat syncs in the game. So I think we kind of set them fairly high in part because that was sort of the pulse of the community at that time. But I think long term, we found that some of those reset costs might be a little bit too high, I think, in general. And so we might be revisiting them in the future.
I remember that conversation happening. That there was a desire for I have so much plat and I have nothing to do with it. Um,
I think it's also why why getting what is it, the Reaper wings is as expensive as it is as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah.
And that too needs to be addressed at some point. But
I do not disagree. That would be nice. Thank you. They are expensive. Um, let's see. Also from Steel Star, was going through some feedback of the Shirati Champion, Epic Destiny Tree, the redesigned version. And there were some questions about mass chaos. So he wanted to try to clear up some of the confusion. So there is no proc chance involved with mass chaos at all. It's a mass SLA, and all non-boss enemies in range are confused with no save. Additionally, when those confused creatures hit any non-player, non-hireling creature, those creatures have a 100% chance to take a stack of fake chaos. Bosses are immune to the confused, but not to the fake chaos. So if you charm a pack of creatures around the raid boss and get them to attack that raid boss in their confused state, the raid boss should start racking up stacks of fake chaos pretty fast. However, as he dug into that ability, bosses and raid bosses were immune to fake chaos in Preview 1, and they are not meant to be, so they will be fixing that. So,
that's interesting.
might make that a little bit more of an appealing option for Shirati Champion.
I mean, I don't think it's going to be a cornerstone necessarily of Shirati, but I mean, hey, that confusion makes a pretty big difference. And especially if it's a no save, all non boss enemies in range.
Yeah.
That means there's some chance they'll attack you, some chance they'll attack other people. It's the one that came in with the debut of Umber Hulk, and that property came in with Umber Hulk.
Um, I thought it was with Warlock's ability.
Yeah,
Because Umber Hulk's confusion is just a stun effect.
yeah, yeah. I think you're right. Yeah,
So, much to my chagrin, I'm still saying like I really wanted the Umber Hulk confusion to like invert your controls. Like that
right.
was what I wanted the most to make it kind of as something different and unique and fun and interesting. So, alas, it is just a stun. So that was the kind of the news from the day, from the week. It wasn't it's kind of a down week because we're preparing for review 2 next week. So I thought maybe we'd do two things here in this space since we have you here, Jerry. Is one, talk about some of the timing stuff that's coming up and coming through. And then two, talk about maybe if there's any common misconceptions or questions that you see people asking about Epic Destinies we could spend a few minutes on.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good. No problem at all. I don't know that I've seen a lot of confusion over Epic Destinies. I think our previews have generally gone pretty well in getting people up to speed on it. I mean, there are some people who have qualitative and other kind of things that they want us to do with them, but I don't know, confusion is necessarily a big part of it.
I've seen a lot of questions about like what happens with Epic Reincarnation. Like how do the feats work now that there's no spheres? How do I reincarnate? What's kind of stuff around there? Which, to my understanding, basically is just you don't need karma. You just have to get to level 30, pick a feat, you reincarnate, done.
Yeah, in many ways, the actual impact of epic reincarnation remains the same. It's just exactly. The new requirement is, are you level 30, as opposed to, are you level 30 and have a karma sphere maxed out.
So simpler. That's the there.
That's the hope anyway.
There was a
Yeah.
question that we weren't really able. We looked at. I remember on the show last week. We weren't quite sure on with the epic completionist that maybe you can answer. Um, does it matter which feats you have, or do you just need to get 12 past lives and you get a stack of epic completionist, or do you have to still kind of mix and match? You get like 3 from each quote sphere that no longer exists.
I think the intention is that for completionist, you must have
It's still
that's a good
12.
that
It's
is a
still
good
12
question.
past lives, which
Yeah.
is what it is now. But right now, you have to get 3 from each sphere to get it.
Yeah, I believe it will just be 12 past lives then, because there's no way it would know what sphere you're in, and we don't
Right.
require that, say, have every epic destiny. It's not about the destinies, it's about the lives. So yeah, it should just be 12 lives and you've got the option.
Cool. Uh, yeah. So let's talk about a little bit of the timing stuff. Because the mimic hunt is now. Uh, so if you've been waiting to kill some mimics and turn in some mimic stuff, now's the time. Uh, and then what else? So Night Revels is coming when?
Night Revels is coming on October 13th and it's going to run through November 2nd. But let me actually scroll back a second,
Ooh,
because
okay.
here's the deal on Epic Completionist. So it's going to grant a flat +1 Destiny action point. You'll earn additional copies of Epic Completionist every 12 Epic past lives you earn thereafter. So it's just about the past lives, not the spheres. However, you need more than 12 if you want to get multiple copies of Epic Completionist. So it's per 12, you'll get a copy of Epic Completionist. And you'll be able to earn 2 more as you reach up to 48 if you are that obsessed. 48 Epic Past Lives will give you the 4 total copies of Epic Completionist, which is 4 permanent Destiny points, and that's where it caps out.
Right.
But, yes, but back to Night Revels there quick. Yeah, Night Revels starts on the 13th. We have our typical weekly downtime that time, so it should go down around 9 o'clock, be back around 10:30. And when it goes up, the Night Revels should be underway, and that runs through Tuesday, November 2nd, being shut off the morning of Wednesday, November 3rd. And otherwise, there's some pretty big changes happening with Night Revels this year. Although, if you liked the way it ran in the past, going into Delira's graveyard, using that to collect keys and pieces of darkest chocolate, and then run the dungeons, you can still do that. But one of the pieces of feedback we've been hearing and wanted to address for a while now that we're actually doing this year is we're removing the requirement, as it is to run in the Delira's graveyard instance itself. So what you'll be able to do is run any quest you're already running. I gave a little bit of incorrect info on the stream this past week based on what I had heard it was going to be. And then when I actually sat down with Linnabelle, who had done some of the work, I realized that I had received some somewhat incorrect information. So let me correct that now. The way it's going to work is that when the Night Revels is active, there's going to be a new champion available, and some kind of champion of Maybar. And defeating that champion is going to give you a chance to proc a chest. And in that chest, you'll get pieces of chocolate along with a chance for a Night Revels key. So that's largely how it's going to work, is you can defeat champions to get keys and chocolate if you want to, rather than do the Delira's graveyard work. The other way to get keys is any chest in the game, and this is level agnostic, so hi Irestone, but any chest in the game will give you a small chance to get a Night Revels key as well. And that chance can be boosted with the typical potions that we had in previous Night Revels. Instead of offering a chance to get that stuff when fighting undead like it was in the past. It's going to be a 10 or 15% increase depending on the strength of the potion you have to have to get the Night Revel's keys. And let me actually get the exact wording here because I did the release notes this week.
So it's gonna. So if I understand correctly, there's going to be a mechanic much like the new Winter Festival mechanic, where there's a champion in the game. They can, if you get a champion chest, you get a key.
Yep, it's actually based on that same text. So.
Right. But will the Dalera's Graveyard still be an option?
Yes.
Okay. So you can still do it that way if you want to maybe focus in on getting keys. And
Yes.
stuff.
Yep. Yeah. The Night Revels instance will remain for those who want it.
Cool.
And that's in part because we recognize not everyone actually runs on hard or elite difficulty. And although the chest mechanic will be there as well, the Delira stuff will be there.
Well, I would think that if you wanted to, say, maximize your time to key ratio, it would still be more efficient to do the Dalera's Graveyard dungeon. But if you just want to continue getting keys while you're playing normally and not have to, maybe you're not concerned about getting a whole bunch of keys really fast, you can just play
We'll
normal.
see. We'll see. I might have my own pet theory as to the most efficient way to get Night Rebels keys, but I don't think that's actually going to be true, though. I don't think the Delira's Graveyard is going to be the most efficient way.
We'll have to see. Something
I mean,
tells
I'm just
me.
saying, if it were me, I might go to Irestone Inlet and start ransacking chests. But I'm just saying, do what you want to do, right?
Well, I mean, we'll have to see if a certain waterfall in a certain quest proposes a small problem with the amount of champion chests you get. Okay, so there's gonna be new stuff for Night Revels. I think I saw.
Yes, we have a new color of armor, and I'm not going to spoil it for people. Sorry, but we do have a new Reaper plate, cloak, and helm, and then on top of that, we have going to be getting another +2 augment.
Ooh.
And it's going to be Constitution, so it might be kind of popular, I think.
Yeah,
Uh,
maybe.
I do have one little bit of bad news, though, and that is that we are not going to be bringing back the candies this year. The
Oh.
spooky almond and what have you. I'm not quite sure what the issue is with them, but I know that we had a desire that there was some balance issues that needed to be addressed by not offering them this year. Uh, I don't I don't really know the story on that other than that, but hopefully we can bring them back in a future Night Revels.
Okay. Well, maybe they could do it. Instead of it being a one-time or a repeated use, make them a one-time use thing. That could be interesting. But I will be sad to not have my candy. I like my candy, but excited about the +2 Constitution augment. That'll be popular.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the reason. At the very least, just about everyone's going to run Night Revels this
Yeah.
year.
So, and then you're still iterating on update 51. So
Yes.
can you give us an idea of what that schedule looks like?
Yeah, update 51. I don't know if I can. Yeah, it looks like update 51 is currently set for around the first week of November. That could shift, a lot of times by, a month out. The exact date shifts quite a bit. But the current target date is something around November 3rd for update 51's deployment. And we have a preview on Lamania next week. And then we've got a third preview set for the week of October 18th. And then after that, I don't think we have another preview currently scheduled, although we could do one if we needed to. And then, like I say, about 2 weeks later, we've got update 51 deploying.
Cool. And then hardcore, I hear, is coming December.
Yeah, I don't. Did I say that? I don't know if I said
That's
that
the
or
rumor
not.
I've heard.
Okay. Yes, is the answer. I was shocked there for a second. I was like, wait a second, I didn't think we were supposed to say that yet. Okay, but yes, the hardcore, the fifth season of hardcore is set to happen in December. I think the exact start date remains somewhat fluid, but I would expect it to begin roughly mid-December and then go for the typical 90-ish days, about 90 days.
And I'm guessing it's probably a little too early to drop any hints about the funsies that I'll be having with hardcore this season.
It is, and on top of that, I don't think much of the work has been done yet either.
Sure.
I think at this point, it's largely still in the "this is what we're thinking we're gonna do" phase.
Uh, and hey, while you're here, I'm just gonna keep saying like, bring the hardcore champs to life more often, please and thank you. That was great when they hopped over for like a week or something. Blast.
Yeah,
I liked
yeah.
it. You know, just throwing this out here. You do the bonus days with like the double remnant chance. I just feel like that's a great time to like switch the champions around. You get double the chance, but they're different champions. And
Yeah,
again,
that
like
is a pretty good way to do it. Yeah, that would be pretty interesting. I don't know on the tech side how possible that is, but
hey, they made it once. I know it's possible. It was great. I had a lot of fun with that. The hardcore, the different hardcore champions, I think are one of the most fun things about hardcore for me now. So, and they just changed the game more. Like I would be perfectly happy if they were just like you dump them all into live and just had it crazy, but that might be a little
yeah.
harder to do. But
Well, in some ways, just bringing them all in might be easier. I think it would depend on feedback on that largely. I think having more variety of champions is rarely, a bad thing. So I suspect in general that would be a good idea. I think it's just a matter of how much you want to kind of preserve the uniqueness of a particular champion or set of champions.
sure, but I mean, when did champions come out? Like 6, 7 years ago?
I thought that was 2017, 2018, so not that long ago.
I mean,
I think.
I personally like champions. I like the variety they give, but I mean, we've been dealing with the same champions for so long. It's like we get them on hardcore. It's like whoa, different things I got to figure out. So I liked having new champions, and I'm also a proponent of like, hey, give us some more Reapers too, more more chaos. I like chaos. This is off topic, but I read an article about the American League Major League Baseball wild card race. When I read the article, there was still a chance for a 5-team tie for the wild card, which is so obscure and so unlikely that they literally don't have rules for it. So I immediately was like, yes, let's have that. That would be amazing. So
Okay, the answer is champions have been around since December 11th, 2014,
wow.
but then they got the one I'm thinking of is they were basically retooled in 2017 for
Okay.
update 34.
And I'm also just going to shout out to Mr. Dom, who uh, kind of crushed hardcore last season by getting Reaper Wings. He's requesting a champion to be named after him.
Yeah, I'm aware of that request. I'm sorry, Dom. I don't know if we're gonna make that happen for you. Yeah.
um, but anyways,
It is an amazing accomplishment nonetheless.
it is uh, both in commitment and time and not dying. So um, I'm sort of curious to see what he's gonna try to do this next time. But anyways, um, right. Anything else you want to say about schedule for the end of year that you can?
Well, we do have update 52 still set to release also by the end of the year. It may be pretty late by the end of the year, but it'll be in December as well. Our current plan is to have something along the lines of a few new quests and a raid. Exact numbers and subject matter TBD. But I would expect to see a content update in terms of new quests and new things to do along with the new raid in December here for update 52.
And while I won't hold you to this, I believe, if I remember correctly, Severlin talked about in the producer's letter that plans, at least back then, were to have that tie into the Wild Hunt. But don't know if that's
Yeah,
still true.
that was definitely the plans back then. I'm not sure, I've been focused on other priorities, so I have not actually had an opportunity to sit down and talk to the people doing the content work. We have one person doing the raid, a couple people each doing a quest. I've not actually followed up to see what their subject matter is.
Is it a torque raid? I hope it's a torque raid.
No, it isn't actually this
Oh,
time.
darn.
Although Torque is a little involved behind the sces, but I believe this is
As
going
he
to be a
does.
Cookie Kobold joint.
Ooh, that could be fun. I I almost wish that there was um like a catalog somewhere that would kind of tell you who designed different dungeons. Although some of them are a little easier to spot than others. But that's always it's always I always personally find it a lot of fun to find out who did some of the dungeons. So
Yep. Sometimes you can tell
yeah,
especially if you've met them in person or whatever, and kind of get to know their forum posting or what have you a little bit. You can sometimes tell.
Flimsy Firewood. I'm looking at you. It's pretty notable. Okay. So yeah, there we go. That we'll talk about bonus days. We kind of already mentioned it. The Mimic Hunt is through October 6th. So if you want to go get some mimics, I'll also just mention if the Mimic Hunt is new for you, and you do not like mimics and do not want to be eaten by mimics, if you go to the Hall of Heroes, which is where the turn-in person is, you can turn them off. For you, if you open the chest, they won't spawn. If you don't want the mimics, that's how you can do that. Um, unless they're on hardcore, in which case you cannot turn them off because that would kind of defeat the purpose.
Yep, yep. But we don't have hardcore running for this
Right.
Night Revel, so that's true. There's also a small chance we might be toggling it off literally this afternoon if we're currently investigating some reports of login issues. While I'm speaking with you, I've been keeping an eye on email. There's a chance we might actually toggle off the mimic hunt just to see if it might be
Related.
causal in nature. But if presumably it's not, and so we would toggle it back on. But just to be safe, just so you know.
Is that something that you can toggle on by server?
I think you theoretically could, yeah. Because what you would do is basically enable it for certain worlds, but not others. Although historically, we don't really do that.
Right. Because I think it's just the logon issues. I think are just a couple of servers. They're not global, if I understand what's going on correctly.
I don't know. At this point, I know that we're seeing a small but not insignificant number of reports of it since yesterday, last night, and I know one of my own guildies had a hard time getting on last night, as did one of Tolero's. And so today we have actually got some people taking a look at it. But in terms of which servers, is it a server specific issue? Is it a internet backbone issue? Is it something we can address? Is it something we need to escalate to someone else? A lot of unanswered questions, unfortunately, at this exact moment.
Sure. Store sales, Dress to Kill, 25% off of Mirrors of Glamoring, bypass timers, select cosmetic cloaks, hats, helmets, and hair dyes through October 7th. Um, I don't mind that they're on sale, but I'm not sure that timers fit into the theme here. Oh, wait. I got it. They're in here so that you can go get the raid loot to turn into cosmetics because they're fancy cosmetics. That's that's the answer, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's mostly because I think the bypass timers are part of the same category as mirrors of glamoring behind the scenes. So I think enabling one kind of puts the sale on the other, but I could be wrong there.
Um, so that's through October 7th. You can also, for the freebie, a free summoned repair shop with the coupon code Fix It Quick. One of those things that are really nice to have, and the only time I ever think about like, oh, this would be a great time to have one of those things that I left in my bank. It's always kind of how that works.
Well, so don't use the coupon. Just this week at some point when you're sitting there needing in a repair shop, you just open it in the dungeon and boom, you got your repair shop.
I usually don't really need one. It's usually when we're pushing a raid difficulty or something and dying a lot. That's kind of when it happens.
I could break a little news. I have heard that one of the things, this is a fairly minor issue, but it's not insignificant either. I think one of the things we're going to be doing is removing the destruction of, excuse me, certain consumables and ammunition based on damage taken. For a long time now, occasionally you'll be like, yeah, it's an arrow destroyed. You lost your potion of, remove paralysis or whatever. I think we're just going to get rid of that mechanic in the near future. I don't know if it'll be for update 51 or beyond. I say nothing generally of any worth ever gets destroyed, but nonetheless, it's just kind of an old artifact that we're going to be getting rid of.
Uh, we're talking about a plat sync. I mean, repair cost is a little tricky though, because newer people need to be able to repair things. But hey, let's talk about community news. Update or date, geez. Chronicle 443 is this week. The spotlight: a player crocheted their own Ravenloft murder house doll.
Yeah.
Death house. That I saw this doll. One, impressive. Really cool. Two, creepy. But job well done.
Someone needs to put like a little Raspberry Pi in it so it can like start using the DM voice from Death House occasionally.
There you go. The comment for the week: you get to name a quest. Not really. What's its name?
Not really.
Not really. That's your name. Not really.
Yep.
Dang, I had one when I put this in. I usually try to check the comments so I'm not caught off guard. And I thought of one, and I can't remember what it was. Damn it! It was a good pun too. I know. That's disappointing. That's disappointing. Dev's Day Out. We'll go with that. Not inspiring, but let's see. Fansite news. We got a shout out for our show last week. We talked about Update 51 preview. Again, we'll have the second half of that discussion coming up after this show in the recorded version. Thank you for listening to us live, but it won't be live. We recorded that last week. DDO Stream is your first stop to find DDO on Twitch. This week, DDOPL runs Horizon Walker, Bard Life keeps the show going, and Vooduspyce has coffee and chat. Also on Twitch, Django EX runs the Temple Outpost. Apocalypse Dom does heroic speed leveling, and Skaven70 has a D&D adventure. And on YouTube, Jack Allen gets started. Sugera's solos Dirks on Reaper 10, and EGL Lily plays for free. Hey, let's pause here for a hot second. Let's say that someone is streaming DDO and maybe would like to be featured in the Chronicle. How can they let you know that, hey, I'm doing this DDO thing?
Yeah, just send an email to ddo@standingstonegames.com. So ddo@standingstonegames.com, and just let me know. I'm always looking for stuff to feature, so odds are very, very good that if you send me an email about your content, it's going to get into the Chronicle.
So include what you did and maybe a little description, right? Like a little.
Yeah, that ideally it would be like a link, a little bit like a one-line description for what I'm actually looking at, and I guess any kind of name of the show or whatever that you feel is important.
Yeah. I mean, look at what's in the Chronicle, right? Like that's what he's looking for. I'm trying to reduce your workload here, buddy.
Yeah, sometimes I'm more accurate than others, but because I'm not watching, your full hour to try to get a sense of it, so I'll just skip, a little bit on the timeline and be like, all right, so they ran this quest, this quest, this quest. Probably, I'll call it this, unless they actually gave a name for their show or something like that. But
yep. Let's see, and then we kind of hey, plug the weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream.
All right. Yeah. Although I am about ready to take a 2-week break on it, however.
Go figure.
But yes, Wednesday at noon is what I guess you could call my official DDO show. It's when I We'll debut any content that I can. I'll have developers on. It's when I do open Q&A with the community. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, and you can stop by twitch.tv/DDO stream on Wednesdays at noon. I go for an hour from noon to 1 Eastern. And it's also on Facebook and YouTube if you're interested in that. And I do check chat for all three of them as well during the show. So any one of those places is perfectly fine. But yeah, every Wednesday, noon to 1. It's sort of the place where I put a little bit of work every week to do something not entirely dissimilar to like a podcast style format. And then I'll run content in that as well.
Let's see. D&D night on DDO streams Sundays, 7 p.m. Eastern. This week should be Rime of the Frostmaiden, and then the week after that will be Oracle of War, and then you just started a new series, I think.
Yeah, I've had what's turned into a bit of a long running campaign on DDO stream using a campaign of my own imagination, where there was a ruler who had been in place for an unknown number of years, but at the very least hundreds of years, sort of an immortal ruler who, because they were immortal and able to retain that power over the centuries, had expanded the borders of the realm to encompass largely the known world and some of the difficulties that resulted from that. And so the group is actually membership of what are called the Queen's Hunters, the people who are sent out to the remote reaches to take care of problems, collect taxes, and what have you. And through the campaign, people, a lot's happened, and we hit a huge kind of I guess you could say wrap up point last spring. And so now we're dealing with the aftermath and the next phase of the campaign. And that just kicked off last month. So if you good time to jump on board and check it out if you're interested in
Yeah, so
that
it's
kind of thing.
on Twitch, DDO stream, twitch.tv/DDO stream, and also on YouTube. There's a playlist that you can grab, or you can find some of those videos as well. So, DDOCast Plat is mostly back Tuesdays. Yeah, we'll be playing this Tuesday. There might be some Tuesdays that won't happen in the near future, but we're doing that. And of course, trying to keep the show. I think my schedule is somewhat, maybe. I'm lying. I don't know what my schedule looks like for the next, until the end of the year. But yeah, so check out our YouTube page for videos. I will mention I did a video of each Destiny that we've seen so far, and when we get to see the new Destinies, we're still missing Fate Singer, Exalted Angel, and nope, don't remember it. Another one. The Eclipse, Magus of the Eclipse. So when we get to see those, we'll have videos. I'll hop on Lamani and kind of do the same video of that.
My belief is that Magus of the Eclipse will be next week's Lamania.
Cool. But so if you want to just get a line by line understanding of what's in the trees and kind of my hot takes as I was going through them, you can check that out on our YouTube page. And of course, you can watch us live at twitch.tv/DDOCast for live shows. And I post most of the content there as well, although I did not post the Destiny videos there as well. But yeah. That'll take us to Lightning Post. We had a long show last week, so we didn't really get into any of the Lightning Post that we had. So we'll kind of catch some of that up now. Fino commented on the Shadow Dancer video. Said thanks for displaying Shadow Dancer, especially not being one of the main type of classes you run. I do have a rogue that's in fairly regular rotation, not like top tier, but like second tier. Who does run in Shadow Dancer. So I do run Shadow Dancer some. Let's see. There's some nice touches implemented, but the tier 5 abilities are lacking in that before you had Executioner's Strike and Shot, and a chance to insta-kill. You had Shadow Manipulation. You also had Consume. Shadow Manipulation should have never been removed. Consume could have been reworked as a Phantasmal Killer effect, and Executioner's Strike and Shot should have been kept instead of the drop, and they could level gate it for rogues level 12 or higher. I don't think they want to level gate anything based on a class. That kind of defeats the purpose of an epic destiny.
Yeah, I think our epic destinies, while they tie thematically oftentimes to kind of classes or play styles, they're definitely not intended to be only for a class or something like that. So having a class specific restriction on epic destinies seems like something we wouldn't want to do. Nonetheless, the person's point I think relatively remains, which is that they would like to see some different they would have liked to see us take a somewhat different approach to
Yep.
Shadow Dancer.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Shadow Dancer is the tree I'm probably the lowest on right now. But let's see.
About the only bit I would say,
We
as a
don't have to
critique, though, is
respond to that
this
too. So.
person saying the need to fix 25% in corporeal means it has zero benefit in Reaper 10. Nothing is going to be balanced based on how it affects parties in Reaper 10. If you're running Reaper 10, you should expect it to be unfair, period. That's you know I realize there are some people who like to run a lot of Reaper 10, but any kind of sort of numerical or statistical issue that crops up in Reaper 10 is largely working as intended. If it's not Reaper 10 that we're talking about, but rather say harder elite difficulty, then that would be something we'd very much want to make sure that we address. But an issue that crops up in high level Reaper specifically is frankly not much of a concern.
Yeah, I think Reaper at this point has been out for so long, and people have gotten pretty darn good at it. Um, I think that we have, in general, forgotten the kind of overarching design. Where I think when it was initially coming out, there was a line, something along the lines of, "If you're going R6 or higher, we are intentionally trying to kill you. Like, this is not intended to be fair. This is intended to be hard and get you killed." Now, like I said, we've gotten really good at it, and the challenge is perhaps a lot less than originally intended at this point. But
I would say that I think the alternative to an ability that doesn't scale well into high level Reaper from a gameplay kind of decision point perspective, the solution is not to fix the thing that doesn't scale well into high level Reaper. More so, it's find an alternate for your character and playstyle that will work.
sure. You continue to say a nice job of getting to market early on the preview. Appreciate your enthusiasm and passion as a true DDO player speaking on our behalf. You, that's awfully nice. E2 was slipping out when the first preview came out of Update 51 with taking out Dire Charge, Mass Frog, and now with only the 3 choices for Epic Destinies. When you used to have main Destiny plus twists from different Destinies. Yeah, that I have to say I still don't buy into that as a problem in the change. I mean, I get that you only get people are look. We have to change our frame of reference here a little bit, right? Like it's changing. But I personally do not subscribe to the. I used to be able to grab things from 5 different destinies, and now I can only get 3 as being less versatile because you can get more thing. Yes, you only get to pick from 3 destinies, but you can have more than 5 things from the other 2 destinies you're not in. So
We deliberately are spreading out the progression into a curve. It largely was static. Once it provided you'd done a bunch of work over the years, when you hit level 20, you basically had most of what you were going to see all the way up to about level 28 or so. And then there would be another kind of spike in terms of decision points and what have you. And the twists really fed into that system where it trivialized essentially progression throughout the epic curve. And so one of the reasons we're moving away from that is that we want to bring back character progression, decision making, and choice in a way that um, was just frankly way too front loaded under the old system.
I mean, I've been doing a lot of TR lives, and I don't choose things. Like, no. Having said that, I was actually thinking about this yesterday. I was like, oh darn, I'm gonna have to remember how to spend points in my epic destinies every life, as opposed to just turning it on and going. which frankly is kind of convenient in terms of running content. Like, boom, done. Here we go. Like, I don't have to spend time spending points and things. Um,
I think
but
another hope is that, and I appreciate the feedback. It's perfectly valid and everything. I think the hope in part is also that by making that entire part of your journey really dependent on how many times you've done the journey through twists of fate, we're going to give you more opportunity to find ways to combine epic destinies in a way that is long currently not available. Yeah, you could get a number of tier one, two, three, or whatever twists in there, but I think by blowing that system out of the water and replacing it with the ability to invest more heavily into three different trees, we're going to find an overall larger number of combinations of choices and opportunity there than you would under a system that really rewards lots of grinding and then trivializes the level to 20 to 30, well, level 20 to 28ish or whatever gameplay experience.
I will say I'm really interested to see how this change impacts hardcore, because it's really hard to keep in mind the idea of what does this look like when um you don't have all the past lives and you haven't already maxed out everything. So I'm really curious to see what the feedback comes back from hardcore about how that experience is, especially for myself, because I've typically kind of not liked doing epic and hardcore because of that grind. But I mean, it's kind of a pain.
Yeah.
To news, commenting on one of the things I mentioned, you say you don't like damage over time effects, but they're less for regular mobs and more to aid sustained DPS for boss fights, which is where casters can fall off in raids. So it's a handy thing to have. Um, yes, this is we're talking about the Draconic Incarnation. This is true. This is their intent. I have never really found that to pan out super great. um, it just doesn't
I
feel
don't
like
know.
it's
Divine punishment? What about someone with divine punishment and a whole bunch of light spell power, trying to use it as a way to just boost your damage, your overall sustained DPS when trying to knock down a high hit point mob?
okay. Look, I recognize that part of this is my the way that I play casters. Of like make go boom. It's still alive. Make go more boom. So I'm
That's true. You're probably just got better overall DPS than I'll ever have, no matter what. But I use dot effects actually personally quite a bit.
what I'm getting at is I lack the patience for the dot effects. That's the problem. I recognize that's what they're there for. But it just takes too long for me to. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not great at playing casters and raids. Let's just. I don't have the patience to allow the dots to do the damn. I get that they work and but they're just. I want to make boom.
It's also nice if you do have to keep the party alive in that you still need to do a little bit of DPS output because let's say things are attacking you, to be able to have dot effects as an option because you can cast it, every 10, 12 seconds, whatever it is, and meanwhile you can be healing others.
Yeah, but I mean, it really just comes down to, uh, the play style. Like if they work for sustained DPS, yes, to an extent. The problem is that I've got a certain amount of blue bar, and like the best way to get there is going to be to be using this dot. But then I'm just like throwing this one one or two spells the whole time, and I've got these other really nice, cool spells, and asking me not to use them is it's like putting a toy in front of a puppy. Like it's I'm not patient enough for this style. Um. Anyways, also the epic moment seems very tasty. Complete immunity to your element type. That could have some great tactical potential in certain quests and raids. Um, Aaron, I think this was also about Draconic Incarnation. Hellball needs to be level 6, so Arties and Locks can cast it. Not well thought out, especially since Hellball is useless in ED trees now. Not sure why it would be useless in ED trees. But I think Voodoo, when we were on the show last week, we'll probably talk about it actually in this conversation that's coming up. I think he mentioned that it was actually in their spell trees and you could actually still cast it, but I don't remember exactly. And then Fuzzy Duck wrote in. This was in response to the actual show last week. People being annoyed about epic skill feats going is understandable. Perform from coup de grace in Swashbuckler tree and heal for dissolve in the Apothecary tree come to mind. That's plus 5 DC on some handy insta kills. Also for rogues, those place traps like web and glitter dust can be invaluable in certain situations, especially when soloing, since they don't last long. Having 100% of your disabled device skill as the DC for resisting them is very solid. That's probably the best argument I've seen about boo, those are going away. Although I'll admit that those are not ways that I use them. I don't.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, ultimately that's the reason that they're going away is because very few people ever actually took them.
Right.
Outside of some specific cases, like Fuzzy Duck mentions their perform for coup de grace. We'd see it for search, probably search more than any other epic skill feat,
Fuzzy says, I'm liking the look of the Destinies overall so far, especially looking forward to getting teeth into some less obvious combinations and interesting synergies that might be possible with secondary and tertiary trees, as well as new build variants that'll be possible. For example, Draconic Incarnation lets you cast while raging as a relatively low-hanging fruit. One possibility could be a Shifter Cleric or Favored Soul-based tank with 7 points spent in the racial tree, meaning they'll have relatively cheap access to a 5-minute plus 7 con clicky with no real drawbacks, or even plus 10 plus full martial weapon proficiencies and extra run speed if they splash 1 barb level, spend 4 action points. Yeah. I guess are you guys at SSG ready for the crazy builds that are going to be coming out of this?
Yeah, it's going to be a meta shift, is it not? It's, yes, is I think the answer. I'm sure that with as large and complex a system as Epic Destinies and with as much as is kind of being messed around with here, that there's going to be further work to be done, up to and including maybe knocking down some ridiculous outliers, right? But at the same time, that's part of the excitement here. That's part of the point, is to see what kind of new things we can do with it and see how that opens up gameplay and the overall experience.
And then Fuzzy finishes, found Razorclaw Shifter Hand Wrap Barbarian perfectly viable. Ravager works particularly well for them since it boosts the critical threat nicely, and you get great self-healing through their fast attack rate. Using Duality on theirs currently, and they're still solid even losing the Monk bonuses. But I'm working on getting the hand wraps of the Hound, Legendary Tatter Chain, and Legendary Crocodile Maw looks very tasty too. I mean, who doesn't want to just punch stuff with a crocodile teeth, right? Like,
Yes.
sounds
Who
effective.
doesn't?
So there you go. And then we just have a chat question that maybe you can ask. Is there going to be a pre-invite again for the next preview?
I don't think so. Mostly just due to the fact that the people involved, up to and including myself, simply do not have time to facilitate it this time around. There's no real reason other than that. We could have done it. We just ran out of time to do it. So I think no is the answer on this next week's preview. In general, our intention is to offer early previews for content creators whenever we're having, I guess you might call, really big previews, like, hey, we're debuting a whole Epic Destiny system, or probably something around the lines of an expansion getting its first beta preview, something like that. You could make a pretty solid case that introducing the Magus of the Eclipse along with the rest of the Epic Destiny trees would fall into that category. And I think under normal circumstances it probably would have. It's just that we ran out of time to get it done for this next week. And obviously we're not holding up the preview for it, so.
I mean, that's probably good. Don't hold up the preview for that. All right, so we're going to close out this portion of the show. Again, we'll have part 2 of our discussion with Arkat and Voodoo about Update 51 Preview 1. So thanks for listening to the show. Thanks, Jerry, for joining us today.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Anything you want to plug that you haven't already?
No, I think all the SSG information's out there, and DDO.com is going to be happening here quite a bit in the next couple of weeks. So please do check things out in the forums. And we've got some big announcements as well that I've not been able to touch on that I know are going to be happening between now and the end of the year as well. So we got a couple of tricks up our sleeves as well.
All right. So thanks to all the other contributors for DDOCast, and again to Voodoo and Arkat for joining us last week to talk about Update 51 Preview 1. Standing Stone Games, Wizards of the Coast, and Cyberairs for hosting the podcast. If you would like to support the show, you can visit our website at DDOCast.com, or you can also support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage or you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. Happy to do that for you. Also hit us up at DDOCast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff, including various adventures in DDO, D&D tabletop, and even some other games. If you have a comment on this episode, a question you'd like to hear us answer, a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, you can leave a comment, or you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for latest cast updates at DDOcast. Jerry, you want to do the tagline?
Sure. May all your attack rolls be crits and all your chests level appropriate. Have fun and don't forget to gather for buffs.
I'll kind of maybe just run through them really quick, give some quick hot takes.
Well, what about? Hang on. What about? I mean, we all talked about ones that we liked. What about ones that we didn't like?
Sure.
Well, I mean, unless you're going to give us time to actually talk about them as we go through each
Yeah.
one individually.
No, I'm gonna hit each one of them.
Okay, well, then let's do that then.
So we have Shadow Dancer.
Okay.
This is interesting for me because I think I was probably the lowest on Shadow Dancer out of all of them, but I've heard some other folks been like really high on Shadow Dancer, so I'm kind of curious of how that's gonna go.
I suspect you're low on Shadow Dancer because there's so much castery stuff in there.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, I wish it wasn't so castery focused. I mean, it's Shadow Dancer in when it was first made a prestige class, I think in version 3.0, D&D 3.0. I mean, it was all melee and thievy, kind of jumping from shadow to shadow kind of focused, and there was nothing in it that I can recall that really enhanced spellcaster stuff. I mean, the prestige class itself didn't add any levels to your spellcasting ability. I don't know why they put any spellcastery stuff in here. Especially the way as much as Linenbell put in it.
Here's the place that I'm kind of stuck on. I don't necessarily have an issue that it's dipping in both places. That it's doing casty and I'm just gonna say martial. So like weapons, right? Martial and casting. I don't necessarily have an issue that it's kind of doing both. My issue with it more is that a lot of the abilities at a glance to me is like it's one or the other. It's really forcing you into a lane of be a hybrid more than I want it to. If that makes sense. When I compare it with Sharadi I see you can be a caster or a ranged martial.
Right.
And it supports both of those really well. This one, I don't feel like it supports being just a martial or just a caster. It's really leaning hard into that do both. And I don't buy into that very well.
Yeah.
So I'm a little yeah, like I'm a little down on some. It also is losing Executioner Strike, which is kind of a big bummer. It's losing the I mean, meld is going down to 15%, which is a big change. I'm not necessarily like I don't really have a huge issue with kind of their reasoning behind that, and how like they need to kind of take it out of the game for better balance and better play. That's fine, but it is a huge shift in that place. Um, the epic moment, uh, you're sneaking and invisible regardless of what you do. Is kind of okay. And then general thing like it's only 20 seconds out of 5 minutes, and it's less good than a haste boost still,
Yeah, it
which
should
is a
be made
constant
longer
thing.
than that. It should make it longer than 20 seconds,
Yeah.
for sure. 30
Um.
seconds just so that you keep it in line with all the other epic moments. I don't think would be too hard to do.
Yeah. There's just not like my rogue right now is in Shadow. Like when they tweaked Shadow Dancer, like my rogue went into Shadow Dancer and loved it. The original Shadow
Sure.
Dancer was like my least favorite tree because of the charge building system. It was just like I couldn't get
Right.
it to work well. I don't think I'm going to be heavily invested in the Shadow Dancer on my rogue now. I will have some in here. I will say there is. I mean, it's not to say there aren't some nice things. It's just like I think martial power is going down and caster power is going way up. There's a fun thing in here that like spell casting, you get sneak attack dice on your harmful spell casts. That's fun. But at the same time, like, who's building a DPS caster with sneak attack dice?
Well, that could become a thing. That's what when I saw that, I thought,
Yeah.
some people were probably gonna try that out.
Yeah. For sure. We'll see. It's Shadow Dancer. I think is the lowest tree for me that I've seen, and it's really coming down to I lost a lot of martial stuff, and what I get in return is a bunch of cast tree stuff, but that's not what I'm using the tree as. So, Grandmaster, of course, it's losing EIN, which is lousy. I'm totally with you, Arkat, in that. Like, I liked EIN. Even in its nerfed state, I still liked the ability. I like
Sure.
using it. So that's kind of a big loss. Again, the epic moment, it's doing some neat things. I'm less down on this one than I am on other epic moments. I do like how the epic strike builds. I think that's kind of some fun stuff. The thing about this tree that I really like is how it's adding in a lot of defense for Monk for where they really struggle. But what I mean by that is like there's a ton of absorption in here. Which
For sure.
For a monk, we've talked a lot about how like the MRR cap is just like punitive on monks and how they're designing the game. I think this helps address that a lot, and I'm really excited about that.
Right.
I'll be honest, I really didn't take a very hard look at where the DPS lands compared to where it is right now. But I like the tree as in general.
Well, I'm going to jump in here. I don't like the tree. The mantle is absolutely horrible.
Yeah, that's fair.
This tree seemed to be more about making non-monks be monk-like, right? And I think Monkey Archer in one of the threads on the forums put it the best. This tree allows non-monks to cosplay a monk, and
That's a
and
great
it does
way of
very
saying it.
little. Yeah, it does very little to actually help monks. I mean, and I don't, and which totally, mystifies me, because why on earth would you want to help a non-monk, be a better, be a decent monk, or, to be very, very monk-like? Why wouldn't I just play a monk? If I wanted to be a monk. I thought the Razor Claw Shifter, with its ability to use hand wraps, was probably the best way to, let somebody do some monk-like things, but still be a barbarian, for example.
Sure.
I thought that was pretty cool. But this is I just don't get it. I just don't understand why, because that's what this mantle is all about. It's all about, making somebody who's not a monk be like a monk, and it doesn't really help, monk. And so you asked about, how does this really help the damage? Well, it doesn't. If you don't like the mantle, which I don't, then I'm not going to be able to use the thing in tier 2, which is oh god, Dance of Flowers. No,
Yeah, you're
hey,
right. It's Dance of Flowers.
with that adds the
And
+1 weapon to your,
yep.
right, your +1 weapon. I- it's an awful mantle to be in just to get 1 W, right? So I just feel like this. I love the extra, the absorptions. I thought that was brilliant.
Mhm.
But and there's some really good parts to this tree, but the mantle is awful, and the loss of everything is nothing is really, 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 really is a stab to the heart, to me. And I just am really disgusted, and if I literally, am considering, just TRing my main Arkat out of monk and finding something else for him to play, because this just this just hurts too deeply.
I think for me, a lot what your critique is, for me, is really about the mantle. I think the tree in general, monk wise, is fine, but like that first tier of the mantle, if you're already a monk, is just so underwhelming,
Yes.
right? Like, and the hard part is I don't know where the fix is, because the stuff that's in there isn't like, and maybe here's a thought of, like, take the 15% movement speed, um and drop that down into like Dance of Flowers. So your mantle gives you +1 W and that percentage to speed boost in that point. And really, but more like in that core part. Oh, and then you could take the you're immune to slippery surface in most forms of knockdown and drop that into Serene Mercy in the other one, right? Or maybe spread some of those bonuses out. But the main thing what I'm trying to get to is, in that first tier, I really feel like it needs to do something that keys off of something monks already are. So if you are a monk, you're getting something out of it, right? Or maybe there's like, here's a bonus based on your stance and how many of the monk feats you have.
Sure.
And I think actually tying it off of the monk feats is probably one of the best ways to go, because you can have a variability of how monkey you are, right?
Yeah. Sure.
So maybe there's like, I don't know. It feels kind of cheesy and lazy to just say like some extra damage based on how many monk feats you have, but something along those lines, right? Like, have something there that keys off of, oh, you're already a monk? Let's make you a better monk. Not just,
Exactly.
let's make everyone a monk. Like, I'm already a monk. Like,
Right.
it still has that problem for me.
Increase the MRR cap. Do something that would be useful to actual real bunks.
It does have MRR cap in the upper
Yeah, it's like
tier.
10. Was it 10% to your MRR
I
cap?
think it was like plus 20 or something. There's actually a lot more MRR cap increases now. Where is it? 15 MRR cap, which comes
15.
along with
Okay.
15% force absorption.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it's I think the place for me that like stepping away from the EIN part, which we've already talked about, the mantle is just like not there for me still. The mantle is not a monk mantle. It doesn't work for monks. It doesn't do enough for monks. And the surfaces and knockdown, sure, that's helpful, but it's not doing what I need it to do.
Right.
What I want it to do, right? Dreadnought. Dreadnought, I think, was actually one of the, aside from Adrenaline and Hunt's End, I feel like Dreadnought was the best example of a strike building. I know a lot of people are down on what they're doing with Dire Charge and like taking it out of what you can do with it. Having like, once you get past Dire Charge is going away, I really like, or as it is going away, and you have to be in here to get it. I really like what this is doing with it, in that it builds, and you can do it with ranged weapons, which is really fun. But when you build it all the way up, it's a Sunder, a Trip, and a Stun all in one. It's actually more CCE, which is pretty cool. That's really neat. Let's see. Those were kind of that was kind of the big thing I saw in here. There is regenerating action boosts is pretty cool. I think that's going to be really popular. Anyone else have thoughts on like Dreadnought or should
On Dreadnought now.
Yeah.
You know I don't do melees, so
Yeah. Well, hey, let's talk about Draconic Incarnation then. You like doing casters.
I do.
What's your thoughts on Draconic Incarnation?
Well, the glaring thing for me is that energy burst is one of the glaring things. I'm really not happy about that. But then they have this like quasi 20-second counter thing, and when it times up, you do burst. So it's like, I think that thing seems awful. Like some people were saying, like, I'm not going into an encounter thinking that mobs are going to still be alive in 20 seconds. I
Oh, you're
really
talking about
hope
the
that
epic moment?
is that the moment? I can't even
Yeah.
remember, but it just seems awful. I don't like it at all. Where's energy burst? Those were the standouts there. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to do a deep dive into any of these. It was more of a cursory look at just some of them. So,
Sure. Arkat, you have any thoughts on it?
On Draconic, I'm still not. So I know. So let's say I've got when I do, I have a Dragonborn Sork, because that's an acid Sork, and one of the things that I just was looking at again were the dragon breaths. Draconic Incarnation, they get a dragon breath, and what do you call it? It's the Dragonborns. They also get a dragon breath, and what I was talking with my wife last night about, as we were driving out to have dinner, was, I asked her, I said, what's the difference between the two? I mean, there must be a reason why I took the Draconic Incarnation version of Dragon Breath on that tune instead of the the racial one, and she couldn't help me, and it's been so long since I actually looked at it and researched it. I didn't know what the real difference was. I mean, do they share a cooldown so that there's no point in having both? Or I don't know what the what if anything distinguishes the two. So that then led me to wonder, you know, what have the changes been to Dragon Breath, in Draconic Incarnation. So does anybody know?
The difference between Dragon Breath and Dragonborn and Draconic Incarnation.
Yeah.
Um,
And how did
I don't off the
this
top of my head
new
know.
Draconic Incarnation, how did it change it?
Well, I can speak to that more clearly. I can't speak very well to the Draconic or the Dragonborn one, but the chat is saying that it's lower damage than the Epic one, which is
Way lower. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a different thing.
Okay.
um.
That's why it was so different. All right.
I'm gonna do this.
So is it more damage now or is it less damage now?
It is. So what it is right now is it's shoot. I was just looking at this. It's the damage is going to be a little bit lower. I don't remember if it's a D6, but it was like I think it was a D. I can't remember if it was a D6 or D10. Plus 50. It was plus 15 per damage per character level. I remember that part. I'm gonna set aside the Dragon Breath burst thing for a hot second and talk about some of the other stuff in the tree, and then I'm gonna come back and circle it. I actually gave that part a little bit more thought.
Okay.
Some things that I like about this is the spell point reduction on spells. I think fits really well. The second core gives you eschew materials, which as a free thing, like not having to spend a feat, I'm kind of actually stoked about. Because let's just say that I'm not super great at paying attention to my spell components on an alchemist. So that goes through pretty fast. You can get mobile spellcasting out of here, which is kind of fun. I'm actually surprised I haven't seen more people talk about the loss of the sheath. You don't get to pick what element the sheath does. And it's in tier 3, not really easy to get, so that's going to be a big change for people. It has support for Arcane Archer, Eldritch Knight, and Vile Chemist damage, but I don't really understand. Like, I'm not mad that it's in here, but I just don't see this as being a tree that those builds would be really leaning into. So it's a little weird. There's a double duration for Wellspring of Power. That seems really fun. I'm looking forward to that, and it gives some spell point cost reduction as well.
What's the current duration? Like 6 seconds?
I thought it was 30.
Oh wow.
Maybe it's 20.
Okay.
And I think it's there's chat saying 30 seconds. Thanks, Matrim. I want to say the downtime is either 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Someone said it. Currently it's 30 seconds and a 3-minute cooldown. So this would take it to a minute with a 3 minutes. So it's 1 minute up, 2 minute down, which would be pretty cool. Do they let you pick the Destiny ability if you have the racial? Your Dragonborn color shouldn't matter for Draconic Incarnation, if that's what you're asking. But so the Wellspring of Power double is really cool. The epic moment, I have not seen an incremental buff thing work well in DDO yet. So I'm super not sure about that. Having said that, for 25 seconds you get DR 100, and your hit points begin to generate at a fast rate of duration. If you're not in Reaper, that would probably be pretty nice. But yeah, again, epic moment, bonuses to Rune or Created Rune is, I kind of like how that one plays in the synergy there. Hellball gets added to a spell, like one of the tier 5s, Hellball gets added to your spellbook at level 8, assuming you can cast level 8 spells.
Special mention there, it will go into your spell book. At least it did on Lamania if you don't have the ability to cast level 8 spells. For example, a Warlock or a Bard or an Alchemist that only has 6 levels of spells. When I took my Warlock over there, this showed up as a level 6 spell.
It did. So you can cast it.
Yes.
Okay, that was my biggest beef with that. That was kind of the biggest beef that I had with that. So if you can do that, if you can cast it as a bard or an alchemist or something, great. No problems there. The flyby attack is no longer an attack and in tier 5, which is kind of lame.
Yeah.
I'm more kind of granted, I don't really use it to do damage, but I'm not happy that that's going away either. Okay, so the dragon breath part of it. I think this is actually going to be where they're going to is actually going to be better once you understand what's happening. Right now you get a burst every 30 seconds, a breath every 60 seconds, and you can use the vortex every 2 minutes. So over a 2-minute time frame, what it is now, you would get 4 bursts, 2 breaths, and 1 vortex. Under the new system, so and I'm gonna break those out: burst and breath, and then the vortex. So you get 7 burst or breath in the old, what it is now. In the new system, you get 8 every 2 minutes. You actually get more there. In the current system, you get 1 energy vortex. In the new version, you get 8 energy vortexes because it keys off of your dragon breath and you don't have to do it as a separate thing. So I think we're actually making out pretty good there. And it's 1 button. You don't have to hotbar 3 different things. You hotbar 1 thing, and it does all of that.
Oh, okay.
So I think we're actually in a better place. That was what I got for that.
Well, I'm actually kind of looking forward to trying it out now.
The difference being that you have to aim it, right? It'll be a cone, so you have to aim it. It won't be a burst.
Right. Okay.
So
I do like that they added more schools to the spell focus, because right now precise evocation or precise casting is only evocation or conjuration. It only goes up to +2, whereas the magister is any school and it goes up to +3 now. But in this new version that we're looking at, it goes up to +3 for draconic incarnation, and they've added necromancy and transmutation. I'm not sure why. I mean, I'm glad there's more options. Maybe they really just need to do all schools there. But in any event, I'm glad to see them add more options, and then it goes up to +3 there as well.
I'll jump to Shirati. Steelstar did have a post about the thrown weapon speed. Thrown weapon animations are broken in a way where most epic level thrower builds are consistently hitting the engine animation cap and not gaining anything from further attack speed increases. This is similar to the bow problem we had that just got fixed. Most players who take the existing rolling risks are not getting anywhere near the full bonuses from it. Down the line, thrown weapons will get an animation pass like they did for bows. When that happens, alacrity numbers for throwers are going to need to be significantly lower than they are now. The numbers that they're putting in here put most existing builds at exactly the same amount of thrown attack speed they have now, which is to say the absolute maximum the game allows, while also more closely resembling the numbers that will be useful after the pass. Too long don't read. Most players will have the same speed with these numbers, and they'll have to nerf it less later. So, other than that, I will point out quickly that the Most people are probably gonna, if they're doing like a quick scan through, are gonna notice that Nerve Venom is gone. It is gone. However, there's in tier 5, you can upgrade your Prism Stance to basically add it back in. So your ranged and thrown weapon, ranged and thrown attacks and offensive spells have a 7% chance to either paralyze or freeze, depending on which direction you went. So that's in there.
And in both cases, the mobs are helpless, correct?
Correct. That's my understanding, and I think I heard someone say that is true. So that's in there. This tree actually, I think, does a good job of giving support for caster or marshal. I also really like the change they're doing to Pin and Otto's Whistler.
Yes.
It's one attack, and if they're moving, it dances them, and if they're not, it immobilizes them. You don't have to worry about using the right one for the right moment. It's just great. Perhaps the second best change, I'm going to say. Throwing your shield and getting aggro is my number one change. But this may be my second favorite change out of all the Destiny stuff.
Yeah, it's why I didn't never took Otto's, or Pen, because I was just, there's just it was just too much of a chance for me to use the wrong one at the wrong time. But this, now I'll actually take it and I'll use it.
Yeah, I think it'll be great. Arturium in the chat is saying that the charm and confuse mobs are a terrible idea. I'm not going to disagree with you, but at least there's a caster option that makes sense for the tree. So there's that. And we already talked about Hunt's End's going to be, it's going to be a lower percentage, but a faster time that you can use. I will also say that this epic moment is, other than Reborn in Light, is probably the best. I think the best one that I've seen. Basically, it lets you ignore either, you can move with Archer's Focus, or you don't take the 20% damage penalty to improve precise shot for 30, and that's for 30 seconds, which is, the timing feels better, and what it's doing feels better. In terms of DPS, you can have no penalty to improve precise shot for a full many shot, and then some. So that's cool. But that one actually feels pretty good. Anyone have anything else they want to say about Shirani?
No, it seems like Shirati is going to be the one that was the least bit affected, or least bit effective negatively, as far as I can tell. I mean, I like the changes to Shirati, and so my knife thrower is going to stay in it.
Is there helpless damage currently in Shirati?
Well, Nerve Vent. Well,
I don't think there's anything that increases your damage versus helpless, though, right?
Right. No,
I don't think there is.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think from a martial standpoint, the only place that I would say that maybe you're gonna feel less good is there's only one stance now. It's your mantle, so you have to have the rainbow stuff on there.
Right.
Which is perhaps not. Well, I guess you could not take it. But I know there's sometimes that's not necessarily something that people want to be want to have that active for boss fights where you're trying to time things. That could be a problem.
Right. Sure.
Although there was that one time where we got the permanent fire dot on both Truthful and Fall of Truth, and party wiped, and were, I think, 5-ish seconds away from having them both die at the same time from the fire dot. It was so close. It would have been so amazing. Just missed it. There you go. Fury of the Wild. I think kind of my hot take was I liked that there was a crowd control ability, so that you don't. It's not as good as Dire Charge, but there's a crowd control ability in there that I think will be really helpful. And in general, they liked. I like that they kind of expanded. Like, there's other options to Dire Charge now, if you will. They're not necessarily as good as Dire Charge, but they're there, so I like that. I think this will be a great secondary tanking tree.
Yeah, well, that's the problem though, PJ. A tanking tree.
I mean, I think
Unbridled Fury is not about tanking. It's about offense. It's all about
Oh, sure.
offense.
Yeah, the epic moments all are, unless otherwise said, are this. I mean, this was at least 30 seconds out of 5 minutes. But yeah, the offensive value of Unbridled Fury is, your strength, dexterity, and constitution are increased by 150%. That is
We'll talk about that. But...
woefully. We can talk about it now. That's woefully lousy for an epic moment.
Well, it's not even working. It's not even working as an.
Well, I'm not gonna worry about it not working. That's another thing entirely.
Well, yeah, but
if it's not working when it gets to live, we can talk about it then.
Sure. Okay. So, but you're right. But so yeah. Well, I guess it really depends on what you mean by base, the base value. So is it? So so let's say my half orc spent 16 points in strength, right? At character creation to get a 20 strength.
I mean, here let me put it this way.
Is that my base?
Let me put it this way. Even if it's entirely, if it's whatever your strength is right now with all of your bonuses and stuff is 150%, I'm still not impressed by the output of that damage. If it's scaling off of like your inherent number, so like your starting value plus tomes plus ability increases, and doesn't use your increases from items and gearing and stuff, it's even worse.
Okay. So I'm of your thinking. I think it should be, whatever your strength is, when you activate the thing. So
I think that's still not enough.
Your base value, your tomes, your leveling up points, your items, and your fear and your rage. So if you like have a, you maybe you have a standing around a strength of 69, but if you're all raged up and all that stuff, and maybe you're like over 90, then another 45 strength on top of that, that's another 23 points of damage. I mean, that's certainly better. But the base value is, well, it may not. Maybe they should just double your strength or whatever, the double your strength, double your con, double your dex instead of 50%.
Yeah, I like the other stuff, but the offensive value of that is just feels underwhelming to me. And I will say, like, I think this will actually be a pretty decent offensive tree too. So like, I'm not trying to poo-poo that part of it. I will note that their mantle gives you the helpless damage at tier 1 instead of like tier 4, which is everything else. So it's a lot faster to get that, which is kind of neat.
Sure.
So
better invest in strength and stun to take advantage of that, though.
I think actually this tree is you want trip, not stuns.
Well, you're not helpless though when you're tripped. So that extra.
No.
All that extra damage.
You do 15% damage against helpless targets.
But you're not helpless when you're tripped.
Oh, when they're tripped.
Right.
Sure.
So when the monsters are tripped, that you're not taking advantage of that 15% extra damage to helpless opponents.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So yeah, other than that, there was some interesting stuff they're doing with raging in here. There's a you can cast while raged in here somewhere, which is kind of neat to
Well, the
see.
druids could do it, right? And
Yeah, they can if they're yeah they can,
or
but
at
bards
least the
can't.
the razor claw.
Hey,
Well, yeah.
a barbarian has a way to really maximize that now.
Oh, there you
That
go.
could be
Okay,
fun. So
Shifter can cast while raging as well.
which shifter?
that's
Yeah.
right. Bear. Right.
That was Fruit of the Wild. Takes Primal Avatar. Interesting. The most interesting thing I find about Primal Avatar was that it's like the only one that had like an advancement path. None of the other ones did that. That was kind of interesting. This one I feel like I have a hard time getting a read on because of the it's so multi-selecty, and they're pretty like some of the abilities are pretty different. What are your thoughts, Voodoo? You're more of a druid than I am.
Well, yeah, I mean the multi-selector, and they just keep building off of each other. It just makes for some really hard choices because you're like, oh, I'd really like to have, this ability from. Oh, let's back it up. So, core one, you have to choose. There's a multi-selector. You have to choose. This is your nature: heart nature, sky nature, or thorn nature. And things later in the tree, like if your nature is heart, you get this. If your nature is sky, you get that. And if you get nature is thorn, you get the who's he, what's it. Okay, and then like later on, there's going to be other multi-selectors based upon that. So you might be like, man, I really wish I had this heart thing, but this sky thing and this other, so but you're channeled into a line of stuff. So it does make for some hard choices. I haven't looked super deeply into it, but that definitely, making that hard choice was definitely something I noticed when I took a look at this the first time.
Yeah. That's gonna be kind of the weird thing about this tree. I will say this tree is really just not a melee DPS tree at all anymore. Like that's all gone. This is just a caster tree now. And I think that's fine. But there are yeah. I will probably use this tree with my Acid Alchemists, as like a secondary to Draconic Incarnation. But the you can go different ways is kind of interesting. Some of it is the same, right? And some of the stuff is different. So it's you're not changing all of the things, like what they can do, but there are some. I think the tier 2 one is kind of passing through. The tier 2 is where it really is different of like what kind of thing you do. Or Sky and Thorn are damage. Heart gives you your heal spells can apply Cocoon. I think the thing that stood out to me at this tree the most is there's a bunch of different things that you can apply Rejuvenation Cocoon as a bonus to what you're doing. That was kind of neat. I kind of liked that. So. All right. Big ideas. What you guys got for big picture Epic Destinies previewed? What do you think?
Good. Who do you go first?
It's so big to me that I just really feel like this is just another one of those things where I feel like I'm gonna have to play it, like wrapping my mind around having 3 destinies active at the same time, and is where am I gonna spend those points? I need to play it, so I'm abstractly enthusiastic about it. I have specific concerns, but abstractly I'm enthusiastic.
Arkat?
Yeah, I understand that the Epic Destiny system had to change, and I think I like the way they changed it as an idea. There are several things that just jump out at me as either, okay, this could be very cool or this could be very awful. I just it doesn't seem like to me that we're getting enough of a comment period. But then again, I know there's going to be at least one more preview. So, maybe there's going to be another preview after that. I don't know, where they make even more adjustments. So me, being ultra worried that this is the way we're going to get it, may not be fair to SSG. So, but having said all that, the main thing that now I really started to think about is that, of course, these are level gated stuff, right? So you're only going to get the first 3 cores if you're up to level 30. But you get all the regular tier stuff, so all the tier 5 stuff and tier 4. You get all that at least if you're level 26. And so that means so what do you have left? To that we don't know, and those are those other 3 cores. So I'm wondering, boy, these 3 cores better be pretty darn fantastic if they're going to make a difference, from going from level 30 to level 40, which I guess is where the level cap is eventually going to be.
It's a really good
Um,
point.
yeah. So they these things better be pretty dang powerful, if you're going to get like the capstone at, let's say you get it at level 39 or 40. That's, these last 3 cores, really need to reflect the power level that we're, I guess, kind of thinking we're going to be at when we get into, those legendary
There's
or whatever they call it,
right.
that tier.
There's 2 things I want to point out with that. One is we have some idea of some of the power level we'll get with some of those, because each of the trees, like the first core, tells you what you'll get for each core. So we know a little bit about some of those cores.
So what, an extra 10 melee power,
Right.
and
So it'll give some informative choices. I just wanted to point that out. The second
Sure.
part about that is I'm pretty sure they're on record of saying like those cores are not where you're going to like it will be part of it, but it's not going to be like the cornerstone of your power level increase going past level 30. There's supposed to be something else, some other stuff that's going to be in that equation.
I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean, is
They haven't really
there's going
said
to be
anything
higher
about it.
tiers, or in each destiny? What do you mean by that?
My understanding, this is kind of paraphrasing to my own words. My understanding is the Epic Destiny system is not going to be the foundational power level going into plus 30.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know what that's going to be, and they haven't said anything, but I believe they have tried to say pretty clearly that they are not relying on Epic Destinies to be the power, how you gain power past legendary, other than those cores and maybe some points I'm expecting. But that's not supposed to be the primary.
Do some like auto granted feats or something.
I don't know if there's going to be like a legendary trees or what. Like they just really haven't said what that. They're still iterating what beyond level 30 is, and they're redesigning Epic Destinies to help support that, and I think be a part of that, but not like the foundational core of that, is my understanding. I'm not sure if that made sense outside of my head.
No, I understand what you're saying, but boy, that just opens up a lot of possibilities, like a legendary tree, like you mentioned, which is going to confuse us even more, at least initially.
We'll have to see. Like I mean, look, like we can get the only thing we can't get out of these trees is the last 3 cores. And if going into legendary and then our power means here's 3 cores and extra points to spend, I think we're all going to be really disappointed about the kind of power levels that we're going to achieve going into that point. It's not going to. So, and I recall there being some talk about like that's not the point of this tree, this stuff. But here's kind of my overall thoughts, and then we'll jump into other stuff. I like the design philosophies they're going with. I like the multi-tree aspect. I like the strike and build on it later. I think we mentioned like there's the Untitled Sentinel needs some building on that. I think, but I like the ideas towards the epic moments. Again, numbers need some tweaking and maybe some redesign stuff. But from a framework point of view, I really like where they're going right now, especially without the charge building spender thing. So I like a lot of what they're going from a design standpoint. I think a lot of the thing that I would caution for players is there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be looking at that's gone. It's not here. It's not coming back. And a lot of those are really popular abilities. And I have a lot of concerns that a lot of people won't give this the time to play with to see how it can be really cool and amazing, because they're just going to look at what they don't have and they're not going to give it that chance, and they're going to bow out. And I mean, I think that's going to happen. And the only question for me is that going to be 10% of players, 20% of players, 80% of players? So I hope people give it a shake, like give it a shot. The place that I'm down the most on this system is the number of points we have available. I didn't play around with it a ton, but the way that they have pitched this system as being really versatile, being able to go into 3 trees, some of the power that you're losing you'll be able to make up because you can take cores from 3 different trees and that kind of stuff. Like, I bought into that. But when I'm kind of like going on Lemani and kind of plugging some things in and spending points, where I came out of that was the amount of points that we're getting do not support that, do not achieve those design goals. It is not flexible if you don't have points to spend in the trees. If you want so right now, a fresh epic player, someone who's never been in epics before, will start with 12 points at level 20. You can get to around 50 points. I think it's 55-ish or something like that. If you have all of the epic pass lives, you'll start with 23 points. So you're going to have, if you have all the pass lives and stuff, you're going to have 11 more points to spend in a tree. For context, if you want to get a tier 5 ability, you have to spend 30 points to unlock it. If you want to get all 3 cores from 2 other trees, you need to spend 11 points in each of those trees. Without spending any points in a tier 5 to get a tier 5 abilities and cores out of 2 other trees, you're already at 52 points. Which means if you're a fresh player, you have maybe 5 points that you can spend in a tier 5. There are not enough points to achieve the flexibility and power goals that they are claiming. I don't know if you guys don't have anything to add. I'm done.
Now, the number of points, that I got, when I, transferred my tunes over, for the most part, I got 57, and on one tune, for some reason, I got 58 points, and I was really, and I, only one of the tunes, I really, tried to spend, all those points and try to diversify into 2 other trees. And I agree. My 57 points was just not enough. But, keep in mind that I don't have any of the points from Epic Past Lives. So maybe I could have gotten, 61 or 62 points. I still feel that even if I had 62 points, it would still not feel like enough.
I mean, I had 62 on my tank because I think that the numbers are bugged or something. There's some points not going in there.
Right.
And it didn't feel like enough points.
Yeah.
And that's with all the epic pass lives.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 9 epic pass lives to get 1 point to spend. That's a lot of pass lives to get 1 point, and there's not enough
Right.
points. There's just not enough points to spend in these trees. And if you're talking about like they don't want that, like they want your power level to be not like a huge drop off at level 20. I mean, 23 points if you have all the epic pass lives to start at level 20. Like you're not gonna have anywhere near the amount of power that you have, which is not necessarily completely a bad. Like it's not. They're trying to front
Well,
load some of it, but you still like everything they're talking about for design standpoint for how much power you're supposed to have, whether it's at the beginning or at the end. You need more points. Period. There are not enough
well,
points.
well, let's also keep in mind that the tiers are also level gated. So even if you're at level 20 or whatever, you're not going to be able to get a tier 5 ability anyway, right?
Sure.
You're gonna have to be up to level 26 to get tier 5. So I
23
mean,
points. If I'm spending that in 3 trees, that's 8 points per tree.
right. Well, but that's also, I mean, but are you talking about a tune that has become level 30, or are you talking about a tune that's level
Talking about
20?
level 20.
Okay, so maybe 8 points in 3 trees isn't so bad. I mean, I don't know. I didn't try it. So is 8 points in 3 trees, is that terrible for a level 20 tune?
I don't know. Overall, I just like there's just not enough points. I don't think they're going to achieve. I don't think players are going to achieve their design intent without more points
Yeah. And I agree with.
at every point in the system.
Maybe.
I just don't feel like it's there.
Definitely at the end, but
And
maybe
beginning,
even
middle.
in the early levels too.
I'd also like to add that it sounds like there's still more trees that we're not going to get when this goes live in update 51. There's still some warlock tree, and there's going to be some artificer tree someday. It's going to feel incomplete. Some people have been waiting for those for years. Let's make that happen.
Those trees are going to like unlocking those trees though. You get like 1 point to spend per tree you unlock. So that's not going to move the needle very much. I mean, like 1 point is good. Don't get me wrong, but it's not there. That's
No,
really
it's not
the
going to
issue.
add to the points, but I'm just saying, it will be nice to have those trees. We're just speaking about, in general about our feelings about this overall system. I hope it doesn't take 5 more years to fill out the rest of the Destinies.
Right. All
Well, let
right.
me ask you then, Patrick, how many points do we need? I mean, do we
Oh,
need like, so like for the action points, we get, like 82 or 83, assuming that you buy the crap from the store, or you got the stuff from the expansions. I mean, do we need like 82 or 83 points in your opinion to meet the design goals of the Epic Destiny changes?
I don't have a great answer for that. I think the front-loaded part is probably needs more points than the end game needs more points. And I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know where they're going to go like when you get past level 30, right? So that could potentially change some of the metrics. But
Sure.
like they sold me on a system that's going to be versatile and like more versatile, not less power. And if I have all the points I can have, I don't think that achieves that goal still. And we have to recognize that most players are not going to have all the points. Right? Now, granted, there's a difference there of like 11 points, I think, between like having all the past lives and not having all the past lives. But still, that's not insignificant. And if I don't feel like from spending the points a couple of times that I'm going to achieve that goal of power and versatility with all of the points, I don't understand how someone who's got 10 less points is going to achieve that
Sure.
compared to now.
Right.
So, there's not enough points. I don't know how many points we need to get to that point, but I mean, I'm basically able to spend. If I want a tier 5, I can barely get cores in the 2 other trees, and I'm not going to be going higher than tier 2 in either of those trees to get that. If you want tier 5 and more than a tier 2 in another tree, you're not going to get any points in the other. You're going to have very few points to spend in your third tree. And that's not the versatility that I bought into when they were talking about it.
Okay, fair enough.
And maybe it's not, potentially, it's not actually more points. It's lower point thresholds to get to the next level. Like, that may actually be a better answer. Maybe you only need to spend 20 points to get to tier 5. And you only need to spend 3 points to unlock the second core and 6 points to unlock the third core. That may actually be the better solution than more points.
And maybe make a lot of the multi-point abilities, have to spend 3 points to get the best, the top, the best version of it. Maybe just reduce all those to 1 point and you get the best version right off the bat. Because that would be fewer points that you have to spend in the tree, and it would be certainly a lot easier to get to the top.
Maybe. I don't know if that's necessarily. I think it's more the versatility aspect of like being able to spend. It doesn't really matter how if I need to spend 30 points to get into tier 5, it doesn't really matter how many levels various abilities have. I still need to spend 30 points in the tree to get there.
Right.
And that still leaves me hardly any points to spend.
I see what you're saying. Okay, no, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, that's not a bad idea actually.
The power, it's more the versatility than the power, right? Like
Right.
The power that they promised came through the versatility aspect of being able to spend points in a bunch of different 3 different trees.
Right.
And that's not there.
Instead of spending 5 points per level to get to the next level, maybe you do it like 3 points per level to get to the next one.
Sure. Or it's like it's 5 points just to get to tier 3, 10 points tier 4, 15 tier 5, or 20 tier 5 or something like that.
Yep.
And you can just buy in first and second tier, or 5, 10, 15, 20. That would probably work too. But it's 30 to get to the top tier, and that's not working.
Sure. Okay.
So may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate. Have fun, and don't forget to gather for boss.